Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive into the world of elite FPS performance.
Right.
We've got a whole stack of sources that really synthesize the latest trends in structured aim training and also the competitive hardware scene.
And our mission today is pretty simple, really. We're giving you the shortcut.
A shortcut to what, exactly?
To understanding what the best players in games like Valorant and CS2 are actually doing. You know, what gives them that edge.
So we're looking at two main areas today. First is the methodology, the how. That's the Voltaic benchmarks and their training routines.
And the second is physics, the hardware. A relentless chase for speed and precision with these ultralight mice, high polling rates, and all these specialized mouse pads.
Let's start with the foundation, Voltaic.
We have to. If you've spent any time at all in the aim training community, you know the name. It's way more than just a clan.
It's more like a whole educational community.
Right. Exactly. They provide these comprehensive guides, routines, and what's really crucial for this discussion, the standardized benchmarks that everyone uses to measure their skill.
And this is where the big confusion comes in. I mean, it's a trap a lot of people fall into.
Oh, for sure.
You download Kovacs or AimLab, you see Voltaic, and you think, okay, this is my new workout routine.
And then you just spam those scenarios for weeks on end.
Which isn't the right way to do it.
Well, it's not the optimized way. Let's be clear, spamming the benchmarks is practice. But the benchmarks themselves, Season 3, Season 4, now Season 5, they're fundamentally mouse control assessments.
Like a weigh-in at the gym.
That's a perfect analogy. You do it maybe once or twice a week just to track your progress over time, not to be the main thing that drives the progress itself.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
So you're telling me the routine everyone grinds for that high score?
Yeah.
That's not what I should be spending most of my time on.
I know it sounds counterintuitive.
It does. Why isn't tracking your progress the same as progressing?
Because the benchmarks are, by design, very broad. They test a little bit of everything to give you an objective score. But real improvement, that comes from targeted, deliberate practice on your specific weak points.
Like I said, the weigh-in. You don't just test your max lift every single day at the gym.
Exactly. You follow a routine designed to build strength, and you test that max lift only every so often. That's the difference right there. Benchmarks versus routines.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So if I'm new to this, what's the correct workflow? How do I actually use this stuff effectively?
Simple. First, you play the benchmarks to figure out where you are right now, your skill level.
And that gives you a rank, like iron, bronze, gold.
Right, all the way up to master, grandmaster, and beyond. Once you have that rank, you immediately switch over to the specialized aim training routine that's made for that specific level.
And that's what actually pushes you to the next rank.
That's the engine of improvement. These are the fundamental routines for beginners or for more advanced players. There's a system called VDIM, the Voltaic Daily Improvement Method.
I like that. So it's assess, train, then reassess.
You got it.
And about those ranks, the system is surprisingly complex. It's based on something called an energy threshold.
It is, and it's brilliant because it stops you from being a one-trick pony. The energy gets awarded across a bunch of different aiming subcategories.
Things like tracking, static clicking, switching.
Reactive, evasive, all the core skills.
So if I'm, say, a god at static clicking, but my tracking is just terrible, I can't just grind my way to Grandmaster.
Not easily. The threshold requires a balanced amount of energy from all the categories. You don't have to be a Grandmaster in everything, but your total combined energy is what defines your final rank.
Yeah, pushing a score higher gives you more energy, right?
Proportionally more, yeah. So it rewards you for specializing in what you're good at, but it still demands you be competent across the board.
And this is taken very seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
For the top ranks, like Grandmaster or Nova, you actually have to submit video proof, a VOD, with your system clock and the timer visible.
It just confirms how competitive and actively developed this all is. The benchmarks are constantly being updated and refined season after season. The meta of aim training itself is always evolving.
Okay, that all makes sense. Theory is one thing, but let's pivot to practice. What scenarios do the pros actually focus on? We need to get past those simple arcade-style things like grid shot.
Right. Way beyond that, we need to talk about drills that build complex skills, micro corrections, reactivity, stuff that actually matters in a tactical shooter.
So where do we start?
Let's start with a clicking scenario that everyone loves to hate. Dynamic clicking, specifically Pasu Voltaic.
Pasu. I've heard the complaints. Why is that one so miserable to grind, and why is that misery so good for you?
It sounds so simple on paper, they're just single-click bots moving in straight lines. But the misery, as you put it, comes from their unpredictability.
They just change direction. correction instantly.
Instantly. And they collide with walls, forcing you to make these sharp, sudden corrections. It's so hard because it trains target reading. You have to predict where the bot is going, while also demanding extreme smoothness from your arm and wrist.
So you can't just react, you have to anticipate the path and then be ready for it to just completely change.
That's it. It's that moment in Valorant when an enemy peeks a corner, stops for a split second, and then strafes hard the other way. You need that initial flick and then an immediate large but smooth correction.
I've heard top players say grinding past you was the best thing they ever did.
The consensus is pretty clear. It directly translates to better in-game results, especially with crosshair placement during a fight.
Okay, so that's precision under pressure. Now, you mentioned another scenario, one that an AIM scientist called godlike. Passive 3-click V2. What is that?
This one fills a huge gap in most people's training. See, most clicking scenarios use one-hit bots.
But you're not always one-tapping people.
Almost never to the body. If you're using a rifle like the Phantom or the AK-47, you're using controlled bursts. 3 to 5 rounds. You need to be able to track smoothly while you're clicking.
Okay, so it's simulating a controlled burst where you have to stay on target even as the recoil kicks in a little bit on that second and third shot.
Exactly right. This scenario needs 3 hits to kill a bot. So it forces you to develop that smooth tracking and micro adjustment between the clicks. Not just for the initial flick. It connects clicking and tracking mastery.
That's a great example. What about pure reactivity?
For that, you look at something like Flicker Plaza. It uses these UFO bots that blink in and out, testing your rapid flicking.
But that's not the whole story, is it?
No, the real test is when the bot changes direction without blinking. It challenges you to stay controlled, to stay smooth, and to not over-adjust when the only cue you get is a subtle change in trajectory. It forces calm precision.
And we know you're never going to have a perfect flick every single time. So after that initial flick, you need the cleanup crew.
Micro-corrections, absolutely essential. The difference between an average player and an elite one is how fast they recover from moves.
And you train them.
It often starts with scenarios like Pokeball, Frenzy, Auto. The whole point is to force you to be incredibly smooth and controlled, demanding that fine motor skill for tiny, critical adjustments.
And I saw in our notes the Valorant Pro Demon 1 makes weapon versatility a huge part of his routine.
It's a massive differentiator. His routine is all about warming up with different weapons, simulating different firing patterns. If you only practice with, say, the Vandal, you miss out on building that muscle memory for the smaller, quicker flicks you need for a pistol like the Ghost.
So it makes you more well-rounded.
Exactly. You're ready for any situation, any loadout.
Okay, so let's move from the virtual training to the physical desk. Let's talk about the tools, the mouse, and the mousepad.
The direct interface between your brain and the screen. And for mice, the trend is just undeniable.
Ultra.
It's the gold standard for competitive FPS. You look at the Logitech G Pro X Superlight 2, the Razer Viper V3 Pro. They're all under, 50-something grams now?
Which means better maneuverability.
And, maybe more importantly, way less fatigue over a long gaming session.
The internal specs are getting kind of insane. They're shaving off tiny fractions of milliseconds.
Yeah, we're seeing this big shift to optical switches instead of mechanical ones.
They're faster, right, because they use light.
Faster and way more durable, no more double-clicking issues. And then you have the sensor technology. The Superlight 2 has a 44K DPI sensor, which is kind of absurd, but what really matters is the polling rate.
We're seeing 4K hertz, even 8 kilohertz now.
For anyone listening, that means the mouse is telling the computer its position 8,000 times every second.
What does that actually feel like in a game compared to the standard 1000?
It feels incredibly responsive, almost like a wired mouse. The input lag is basically gone, which makes those micro corrections we were talking about feel just snappier.
But there has to be a trade-off.
Oh, there is. A big one. Power consumption.
Right, the battery life.
Exactly. The Superlight 2 goes from a really solid 95 hours at 1 kHz down to about 50 hours at 4 kHz. You're making a very conscious choice to trade battery life for that max responsiveness.
A trade a pro is going to make every time.
Every time. And they'll just charge it every night. For a more casual player, 1 kHz is probably fine.
Okay, let's talk mousepads. If the mouse is the input, the pad is what fine-tunes the feel. This is that huge choice between speed and control.
And it's probably the most personal choice you can make. It's all about friction. Generally, a smoother surface means more speed, which is great for players who do these huge, fast flicks.
But for tactical shooters, control is king.
control is almost always king in games like Valorant. That's why cloth pads with more surface friction are so popular. They give you that crucial stopping power.
So if I'm a player who always seems to overshoot my target just a little bit, I need a control pad.
You need a control pad to act as your emergency brake. The ZOE GSR is the classic example of a pure control pad. It's known for having a ton of friction. When you stop moving your hand, the mouse stops.
What about something in the middle? A hybrid?
The LG Saturn Pro is what everyone talks about there. It's famous for having this near-perfect balance of a smooth glide, but also really good stopping power.
And then you have the high-end stuff, the artisan pads.
Yeah, artisan pads are kind of the benchmark for quality. The Ninja FX Zero is a huge favorite for tactical shooter players. It gives you incredible control, and people often pick it over Artisan's faster pads like the Hayat O2, specifically for that stopping power.
And for the absolute speed demons, there are glass pads. Still pretty niche.
Very niche, to the extreme end of the spectrum. Pads like the Voltaic SP004 or the Razer Atlas, they have almost zero friction.
Which sounds great for flicking.
It is, but they come with some serious caveats. Maintenance is a big one.
What do you mean?
Because the surface is perfectly smooth glass, any finger oils or moisture creates a smudge. And that smudge creates friction, which makes your aim inconsistent. You have to keep them perfectly clean.
And they wear down your mouse speed too.
They can, yeah. You often need special harder skates, like X-ray pads Obsidian feet, to prevent wear. So you get blinding speed, but you're trading away a lot of convenience and maybe even consistency.
Okay, so we've gone through the whole journey from the benchmarks to the routines to the desk setup. What's the final synthesis here? How do you tie it all together?
Real improvement comes from balancing three things. First, honest assessment, using the benchmarks to find your weaknesses. Second, targeted practice using routines that attack those weaknesses. And third, making sure your physical tools are perfectly matched to your playstyle. You can't skip a step.
And we pulled a couple of last tips that people often forget. Remember that aim training isn't about brute force.
No, not at all.
Consistent short sessions are way better. 20 minutes of focused practice every day is so much more effective than one exhausting 8-hour session a week.
And here's one to try if you feel like you hit a plateau. Try playing your routine with your sensitivity turned up by about 10 or 15%.
Just for training.
Just for training. It demands a higher degree of mouse control and finesse, which can then make your normal in-game sensitivity feel even more precise.
That's a great little trick.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on. You spend all this time looking at your score, but what if you stopped and focused entirely on the how?
What do you mean?
I mean, instead of just hitting reset after a bad run, use the replay features in your aim trainer. Turn on the leading and trailing paths in aim labs, for example.
Oh, that's powerful.
It creates a visual map. You can see exactly when and where you're over-flicking or under-flicking. You're transforming a score, a failure, into real, actionable, visual data. Sometimes the key isn't the score you hit, but the path your crosshair took to get there. Now that's something to think about.